Good day from the Scott County Boardroom and welcome to the 2014 County Attorney Candidates Forum. Today's debate is being sponsored by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. My name is Rob O'Neill. I'm the pastor of Brookwood Community Church and a member of the Chamber, and I'll be moderating today's debate. Our candidates for Scott County Attorney are Ron Hocevar and Jim Turwido. Would you welcome our candidates, please? Our candidates are arranged in alphabetical order by last name. They'll have 2 minutes to make opening statement, after which I will ask the candidates questions. They'll each have 1 minute to respond to each question, and then in some cases their opponents will be given 30 seconds to make rebuttal comments. As moderator, I'll have the opportunity to ask you gentlemen follow-up questions, in which case the candidates receiving the follow-up questions will have 30 seconds to respond. Each candidate is now going to have an opportunity to make an opening statement, and we will begin with Mr. Hocevar.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Shakopee Chamber Visitors Bureau for hosting this forum today. It's very nice to be in front of the people and to be on their website later for later viewing by the citizens of Scott County. As stated, that my name is Ron Hocevar. I am currently the Chief Deputy Scott County Attorney, which means I'm second in command in the Scott County Attorney's Office. I am married to my wife Marcy, who's out in the audience there. Marcy, why don't you stand up a second? That's my wife. She's very shy. We have 2 gorgeous children. Isabella, she will be 9 years old in a couple weeks, and Dominic, who is 6. I grew up on Minnesota's Iron Range, up in a little town called Gilbert, through my first up through 7th grade. And we made the big move 3 miles away to Eveleth, where I finished my junior high and high school in Eveleth. From there, I went to the University of North Dakota for undergrad and law school. And from there, I went into the U.S. Navy. In the Navy, I became a prosecutor and defense attorney for the United States Navy, the Judge Advocate General's Corps, the JAG, and prosecuted a lot of cases, defended a lot of cases with the JAG Corps, and I can probably talk about that a little bit more later. Once I finished my active duty time, where I was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, I moved back to Minnesota. My wife and I moved back. She was out on the East Coast also. We moved back here and got married. And we're 20 years? No, this past September, I believe. So we came back, got married. I got a job with the Scott County Attorney's Office as a line attorney. I was a line attorney for a couple of years, and I got promoted to Colonel Division Head. And from there, I became Chief Deputy. So I've been a supervisor in the Scott County Attorney's Office for a total of 16 years. The last 12 as Chief Deputy. So that's a little bit about my background. In the County Attorney's Office, I prosecuted everything from speeding and trespass to murder in the first degree, and I'm involved in all facets of the office. Thank you.
Mr. Turwido.
Thank you, Rob. I want to thank the Chamber also for hosting this event. I'm glad that they're involved in our community like I am. Born and raised, lifetime resident here of Scott County. I was born in New Prague, went to the St. Wenceslaus School there, graduated from high school in New Prague, went to the University of Minnesota, and then to Willie Mitchell College of Law. I then, like a lot of people, come back to their hometown to start a private practice. And I did that, and then there was some controversy here in Scott County back then, about 28 years ago. And I ran for county attorney, and I won the election. I said I would only serve 2 terms, which I did, and we cleared up all the problems we had. We streamlined things, made it more efficient. I then went back to private practice. I live now between New Prague and Jordan in the country. I have a law practice in Jordan. Besides having 30 years of experience of being a lawyer, I also am a businessman. I've owned businesses, bought and sold businesses. I also done land development also. I've bought land, did some real estate work back and forth. So I have many areas of interest and things that I have done in the past 30 years. I'm a 25-year homeowner in this county, and I know what it's like to pay taxes and how that taxes should be used when it comes to the spending of tax money in county government. I believe that there is a need again for me to come back as county attorney. I feel that there has been some discord going on in the office. I think there's been some lack of teamwork and lack of leadership. And I want to bring that back again, what we had before. We had a system that worked well in this county. Granted, it has grown since I was county attorney before, but the same principles apply. And I think those are the same principles I want to bring back to being county attorney again. I've done many cases and I've tried many types of cases that also involve Scott County, and I will bring that experience back again. Thank you.
Some voters actually know very little about the county attorney's office and its role in our community. And so our first question today is there a need for community education about the county attorney's office? And if so, what would you propose? And Mr. Torwedo, we'd start with you.
Yes, the county attorney's office is a very diverse law office. And most people, I think, see it mainly on the criminal because that's what they see day in and day out on the news. That's what they hear about. And the criminal portion is a very significant part. But they also deal with families. They also deal with child support. They also deal with land use and development, and the county's involved in that, with business development also that they're involved in, whether it's tax increment financing as one example. They're also involved with issues even dealing with seniors. Believe it or not, the probate is a part of the county attorney's office too, when services are rendered to an individual and later maybe have to be recouped because of the amount of money that's still there. But it's the one way to educate people is to be out in the community. I am a great volunteer of being everything from Rotary to the Chamber of Commerce to Knights of Columbus, JC's County Fair. Thus, you know what's going on in the community. You know how to educate these people on a day-by-day basis.
Mr. Hocevar, is there a need for community education about the county attorney's office? And if so, what would you propose?
There's always a need for education about everything, including the county attorney's office, and we do that. We are out in the community educating the individuals. We are out in the community with law enforcement on a daily basis. I'm a member of the Savage Crime Prevention Association. We're educating the community about crime prevention, and specifically for Savage and Savage. I've taught at the Citizens Police Academies in Savage and in Shakopee. I continue to travel around the county teaching not only police officers but citizens. I've spoken recently for various fish presentations where they go out and Fish is a community organization that helps the community and helps deliver essential needs for individuals that are down on their luck. They might need a bed, they might need a place to stay, they might need some finances. And I've spoken with Fish and on behalf of them several times out in the community educating them. So the answer is yes, we can always use more community education, and the fact of the matter is we already do quite a bit of it.
For our next question, we want to talk about leadership philosophy. What is your leadership philosophy, and why do you believe your leadership style is right for Scott County? Mr. Hocevar, we'll start with you.
I've said many times throughout this campaign that leadership is one of the main components of my candidacy. I'm the best qualified leader for this job, and I'll tell you why. Leadership by example is essential. You have to have the confidence and trust of your staff and of the police officers that you're trying to give advice to. You have to have that confidence, and I have that confidence. So my staff, they have my support, I have their support. I have the confidence and respect of law enforcement. As I stated, I've prosecuted everything in this county from speeding to murder in the first degree. I'm involved in CHIPS cases, curfew, truancy, land use, child support. I've done it, I continue to do it. I will continue to do it as the county attorney, so my staff knows that if there's an issue, they can come to me. I will have an answer, I will have a decisive answer, and they can count on that answer.
Mr. Torwedo, what is your leadership philosophy, and why do you believe your leadership style is right for Scott County?
I have 30 years of experience as a lawyer and a businessman. And I think what happens too many times is that we can say I've tried cases also. I've tried cases in different counties throughout the state of Minnesota, not just in this county, in the judicial district. And because of that, I have learned what works and what doesn't work by seeing other types of systems, the way they operate in their judicial systems. And because of that, I'm able to bring that experience also to this office. So I can say not only have I tried that case or I've done that case and with my own clients, but I can see what works and doesn't work in other counties and when we can maybe bring the most efficient system here to Scott County. I want to make sure that I can be able to sit with my staff and say, yes, I've seen this before. This is, I think, how we can maybe handle it. What ideas do you have? You have also had plenty of cases. Let's see if we can work together as a team. And I not only will lead by example because I've had done the cases, but I can also sit there and say, yes, I think you have some good ideas also. Let's push for it.
Well, voters are wondering what you view as the current strengths and weaknesses of the county attorney's office and what you would do differently if you were elected. Mr. Torito, we'll begin with you.
Well, I think one of the strengths of the office is that we have some good staff here. We do have some good people that are working in the county attorney's office. I've worked with pretty much all of them, and they're very good people. I get along with them, and I work well with them. I think, one of the things that just happened that was a weakness that just happened, which I think we've cured, was the idea that weakness not in the personnel, but weakness in the system. We had the county attorney's office and joint prosecution. And it's been that way even when I was county attorney before. And during the time now that we've had this separate, it's been 12 years that they've been working on it. We know there was a study done to bring them both together. The study has been completed. It's been done. It's put into effect. And I think I want to be around to make sure that gets streamlined, budgetary, staff-wise, and job responsibilities to make sure that system gets done well.
Mr. Hocevar, tell us what you view as the current strengths and weaknesses of the county attorney's office and what you would do differently if elected.
Let's be clear about one thing here. Mr. Tweedo just said that about the Scott Joint Prosecution Association merger. He stated that we've cured that. There's no we involved with Mr. Tweedo. There's no we involved. That was done by this administration, Mr. Celeberto and myself, getting that merger done. There's no we. It's this administration. We worked on it, not us. That's the strength of this organization, is the leadership. We made that happen. It's been a goal of ours since the beginning. It's done. I'm in the best position to make sure that that merger works successfully. I've worked alongside those individuals for the last 12 years. I know their strengths. I know what their guidelines used to be. I know what their policies used to be. I am in the best position to make that transition smooth, to make it effective for the Scott County citizens, and make sure it works. I have their support. So there's no we involved. That was done by this administration, by Mr. Celeberto, and myself.
Okay. For our next question, the county attorney's office is responsible for litigating a variety of case types. What type of litigation experience would you bring to the office, including experience in front of a jury? Mr. Hocevar, we'll start with you.
My trial experience is extensive. Started out with the U.S. Navy. As I indicated, I went there immediately after law school. I was stationed at the Norfolk Naval Station, the biggest naval station in the world. We were extremely busy. I got there my very first week. I was handed some files and said, go prosecute, or I was a defense attorney first, go defend. I've defended everything in the Navy from rapes, assaults, drugs. I defended a couple of cases that got national attention. One was an individual who's starting his nuclear aircraft carrier on fire. Just so you know, the Navy frowns on that, so don't do that. Also, I was involved in defending several aviators that were involved in the tailhook scandal way back when, if any of you are old enough to remember that. I actually defended aviators involved with that. From there, I went to the prosecution, and I prosecuted the same types of cases. With Scott County, I've already stated a couple of times, I've prosecuted everything from speeding to murder in the first degree. I have more jury trials than I can even count. I think after the very first year in the Navy, I quit counting because it was pointless.
Mr. Torito, what type of litigation experience would you bring to the office, including your experience in front of a jury?
I have done many areas of law that affect Scott County. I have done jury trials. Like I said, it may not be here in Scott County, but I have done jury trials in other counties. Jury trials dealing with land use and development zoning and planning, because I have some background in the area of development. I also have done trials dealing with theft and with neglect and with custody, and having full hearings and trials dealing with child support and DWIs. So I have done that type of work, and it's a very expansive, and also the everyday type of stuff that comes into the county attorney's office. I have done that type of work.
Okay. Now, if elected, do you intend to try cases yourself, or is that a task you'd assign to an assistant county attorney, and what type of factors would influence that decision? Mr. Torito, will begin with you on this question.
I think too many times the county attorneys think that they have to take the big case and look good for the press and everything else. It has to be a combination. It has to be a combination that you've got to be in the courtroom constantly, and so you keep up your skills. You know, we hire very good people for certain reasons, and we train them, and we put a lot of efforts in them, and it's a shame that you would take that away from an assistant county attorney just for the sake of a photo op. And I know that there will be cases that I'm sure I will take that will go to trial, but I think there's times you hire very good staff and have expertise in areas. I remember the good example, a former assistant county attorney who's passed away, Konrad Skonechny, specifically hired him out of Chicago back when I was county attorney before, especially in the area of drug crimes and stuff. Here's a person that had very good experience and very good expertise, and I wanted to make sure that he was brought into the office and took them very efficiently. Sometimes a county attorney doesn't have the expertise to take all these cases day in and day out, and that's why you have good assistants.
Mr. Hocevar, if elected, do you intend to try any cases yourself, or is that a task that you would assign to an assistant county attorney, and what factors influence that decision for you?
I hope to maintain some cases that I can prosecute myself. Not because of selfish reasons, but because I enjoy it and I'm good at it. Majority of the cases will obviously go to the staff. This business about taking cases for the spotlight, my office just finished prosecuting several murders that I did not prosecute. I was not in the limelight. Ms. Brown, who's out in the audience, just finished a major rape case where she's waiting on a verdict right now. I didn't take that case and hog the spotlight. As a leader, you know who to send cases to and who not to send cases to, and what cases that you should try or not try. It's interesting to note that Mr. Tweedos claims here today that we have a great staff in the county attorney's office, when in a recent newspaper article, he criticized that staff for being inconsistent, for being basically moody and not giving people the same kind of case breaks, and now he's here praising them.
Well, the county attorney's office interacts on a regular basis with judges and with court staff. What is your relationship with the bench, and what do you believe is the most appropriate way to handle differences of opinion which may arise, such as scheduling conflicts? Mr. Hocevar, we'll begin with you.
I have a great relationship with our bench. Our bench goes beyond Scott County. It's the first judicial district, which includes many counties surrounding Scott County. And I have a great relationship with all of the bench. We meet with the bench regularly. We talk with the bench regularly. If there's issues, it's dealt with. I'm recently involved in a situation with the bench. We're getting one of the courtrooms all geared up technologically. And I'm having meetings with the judge regularly on that, with court administration on that. But it's also important to remember when you're dealing with the bench, we are an independent body. They're the judicial, we're the executive. You can't let yourself get into a position where you're being overrun by the bench. You have to have a strong leader that's able to stand up to the bench when it's appropriate and say, this is what we're doing, we'll do your job, you do your job. We also have to work with them to make sure things get done, and I do that.
Mr. Tweedo, what is your relationship with the bench, and what do you believe is the most appropriate way to handle differences of opinion which may arise, such as scheduling conflicts?
I can tell you that I have a very good working relationship with our bench, and I do it by example, but also by using through case efficiency. We're dealing with the taxpayer's dollar here, and we have to make sure we're constantly thinking about situations where we could save some money at the same time and still getting justice done. I'm presently doing a case that is it's a heroin case along with theft and burglary that happened over 3 counties with one defendant, and I'm working not only with the judges, but I'm working with the assistant county attorneys, and I'm also working with court administration to see if we can efficiently bring these 3 cases together in order to get the result that is beneficial for the system, and also that we're not duplicating any services. The judges have agreed with me that this is the way to go. The court administrators that I've started working with says, yes, we can find a way to do this, Jim. That sounds like a great idea. Wish we could do this more. As far as scheduling conflicts, we're always going to have cases where we're dealing with a lot of personnel. We're going to always be dealing with cases with defense attorneys and judges and vacations and other cases. I think we can work them out on a case-by-case basis.
Well, as county attorney, you also interact on a daily basis with other county departments and law enforcement agencies. If elected, how will you foster and maintain positive relationships with other departments and agencies? Mr. Tweedo, we'll begin with you.
Well, with the police part, I'm the son of a police officer. I know exactly what a cop does day in and day out, how he lives, how he eats, how he works, and his expectations, his visions, and values. I can work with law enforcement. I did that before when I was county attorney through educational aspects, whether it's through newsletters and then eventually emails, along with training sessions that we did for officers on a monthly basis. This way you work with them, you have good relations. As far as departments go, I have sat on many committee meetings with our county board committees, whether it's human services, zoning and planning, whether it's even extension and library. They all have a role to play here. And I, as county attorney before, sat in on those and worked very well that they could always call me. There is also citizen boards that are made up out there. And I think a lot of times when I was county attorney before, I would go at evening to sit on those citizens board, not maybe at the front table, maybe more in the audience, but I was there to available to give them some of the advice that they need. Do the same thing with townships. We'd go to township meetings, go to city council meetings. I was involved and was working with them.
Mr. Hocevar, if elected, how will you foster and maintain positive relationships with other departments and agencies?
The short answer is I already have. I have built relationships with law enforcement, with all the county agencies that we deal with in the county. I already have great working relationships with them. Mr. Tweedo mentioned law enforcement. I have a great relationship with law enforcement. As I've mentioned, not a day goes by that I don't get calls from law enforcement. I've had several this morning. I've had several come into my office already this morning looking to talk about cases. I'm endorsed by law enforcement. Sheriff Stanika is sitting back there. Thank you, Sheriff. Past Sheriffs Nevin and Menden endorsed me. You can look at my endorsements on that I have. It's filled with law enforcement. So they're behind me. The county agencies, I deal with human services, again, pretty much on a daily basis. CHIPS cases, child support cases, truancy cases, curfew cases. We deal with the schools on curfews and truancies. We deal with the schools on the juveniles that get in trouble, that have detention hearings, that are possibly missing school. So I have already fostered those relationships, and I maintain those relationships.
For our next question, do you think the county attorney's office is functioning efficiently and with the appropriate level of staff? And if not, what changes do you propose? Mr. Hocevar, we'll begin with you.
It is very much functioning efficiently and appropriately. As we've already talked about, this administration completed the merger with Scott Joint Prosecution Association. Obviously, we'll be making some tweaks to that as we go along, and as I've already indicated, I'm the best person to successfully see that through once Mr. Celeberto retires. Obviously, as any leader would want, obviously I want more staff, but you can't get everything you always want. I would love to have, as many people as possible, but that's just not a possibility. And with Mr. Celeberto, along with our office manager, Lori, we make it happen with the budget that we have. We have over a $3.5 million budget. The county, the population now is like 157,000, I believe. Back in Mr. Tweedo's day, it was less than 55,000. He had eight attorneys. I now supervise 22 attorneys and 14 support staff. That's a big difference.
Mr. Tweedo, do you think the county attorney's office is functioning efficiently and with the appropriate level of staff? And if not, what changes do you propose?
You never know how many cases are going to come to the county attorney's office, and you have to deal with the cases as they come with the staff that you have. You have to have a good working relationship with our budgetary and especially with our county commissioners in order to foresee what was going on. When I was county attorney, never had a problem with the Scott County Board of Commissioners. They always gave me what I needed. Not what I wanted, but what I needed to run that office efficiently. We had appropriate staff, appropriate support staff, appropriate wages. And everything was going well. I think we have a present problem here because I don't think there is a breakdown between the county board and the county attorney's office. I mean, there wouldn't have been a lawsuit by the current county attorney against the county board if it wasn't for that they had a breakdown in communications of what was needed. I am going to mend that fence. I'm going to make sure that my working with the county board is going to be good again, and that we're going to make sure that we get the appropriate levels of staff.
Do we get rebuttal on?
Yes, Mr. Hocevar, 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Okay, I'd like to remind Mr. Tweedo again that he's not running against Mr. Celeberto, he's running against Mr. Hocevar. Mr. Tweedo has tried to paint me with this brush several times during this election. He first put out a pamphlet indicating that I benefited from Mr. Celeberto's lawsuit. I did not. The judge's order says it was denied. So Mr. Tweedo is either misrepresenting it to the citizens of Scott County, or he doesn't know what denied means. Either one, you should not expect that from the chief legal advisor to the county.
And if I may respond
Mr.
to
Torito,
that.
30 seconds to respond.
You know, what the issue was, what is the working relationship? There's a bad working relationship between the county attorney's office and the county board. And I want to make sure, I have the support of the many county board members, and I will not sue the taxpayers of Scott County. I will make sure that we have a good working relationship. He is the chief deputy. He should have been part of the system working with the county attorney to make sure things are going well with the county board, and he hadn't done that.
Can I respond to that?
Mr. Hocevar.
Again, Mr. Torito put another pamphlet just this week, which again is completely misleading. He talks about myself should have spoken up about Mr. Celeberto's lawsuit. Really? It was Mr. Celeberto's fight, not my fight. He's the boss of the office. He sets policies. He sets guidelines. We as employees follow that, unless it's illegal. What Mr. Celeberto did was not illegal. Why wasn't it illegal? He won twice. Judges twice said what the commissioners did, what the county commissioners did, was not correct. They did not follow the law. It was Mr. Celeberto's job to make sure they followed the law. He did that.
Thank you, Mr. Hocevar. For our next question, what do you believe is the number one issue facing the county attorney's office, and how has your experience prepared you to address that issue? Mr. Torito, will begin with you.
I think we're getting a growing issue of juvenile crime in Scott County. I've seen more and more of that happening. I think we have an influence coming in of gangs and instances where maybe more drugs are coming into our county. I think when I was county attorney before, all the drugs situation changes. When I was there before, it was a crack and ice type situation, and then it goes, as we've been seeing in Belong, it's been going through methamphetamine, and then all of a sudden now we're back into heroin again. And I think we have to keep an open eye on the situation. We have to work with our law enforcement. We also have to look at our community groups and what they're hearing out there. We also have to be working with our schools. And when I was county attorney before, I worked a lot with schools to make sure that children are educated about peer pressure of alcohol and drugs. I will continue to do that. I work with a lot of groups, such as Rotary, that works with a lot of schools, and to make sure that they understand what's happening in our schools and to make sure we can fight against these crimes that are happening.
Mr. Hocevar, what do you believe is the number one issue facing the county attorney's office, and how has your experience prepared you to address that issue?
Drugs. I've been with the county attorney's office for the last 18 years. During at least the last 10 to 12 years, when Mr. Torito was not in the county attorney's office, we've seen a huge population growth in the county. Going from 157,000, it was back down to less than 55,000. With that population comes more crime. So drugs are a huge issue. They take up a lot of the time and effort of the office staff right now. With the drugs comes the related crime, the murders, the rapes, the thefts, the robberies. So we have to deal with all those. And I'm in the best position to deal with that because I've been here through the growth that Scott County has experienced. I've been here through the growth of the Scott County Attorney's Office as a result of that. I've been here and dealt with that, with the schools, with the community, and with law enforcement. So I've been there on the front lines dealing with it, not talking with the law-abiding citizens in Rotary, but actually dealing with law enforcement, dealing with the crime victims.
Well, candidates, there has been a lot of discussion in the media regarding the level of connection you each have to the community that you seek to serve as an elected official. What do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of community ties as this relates to the work of a county attorney? Mr. Hocevar, will begin with you.
Certainly. Community ties are obviously important, and to suggest that because I happened to move here this past summer that I don't have community ties or that I'm not a dedicated employee is really pretty insulting. Over 18 years I've worked for the citizens of Scott County. You want to talk about dedication? I decided to pick up and move my family from the home that me and my wife built, from the home that my children have only known, from the neighborhood that my children had friends in. I chose to pick them up and move to Scott County so I could continue to serve this community, so I could continue to represent this office, so I could continue to lead this office. That's dedication. And to suggest that I don't have community ties because of that, when I worked in Scott County for the last 18 years, very closely with law enforcement for the last 18 years, going to community events, teaching various classes to the communities throughout those 18 years. I have the community ties. Just because I didn't lay my head on a pillow here to sleep at night does not mean I don't have community ties.
Mr. Tweedo, what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of community ties as it relates to the work of a county attorney?
I can tell you, you can, when you elect a person to represent you, that's the key word, represent you. You have to have somebody that lives in your neighborhood, that talks to your neighbors, that is part of the groups that your neighbors are involved of, so you have the same vision for your neighborhood and community. I represent the people of Scott County. My opponent does not. I said this to some reporters one time, that just because you live in Shakopee and you drive to downtown Minneapolis every day for 10 years doesn't mean you're qualified to be the mayor of Minneapolis. No, I don't think coming here to collect a paycheck every day, and even though you've been here for 17 years, that it qualifies you to represent the people here, because you don't live here. It would be a shame to say that even our legislators, they all live in Minneapolis, but they represent us. And I think you have to live here. You have to pay taxes here. You have to have a home here. You have to understand the people on a day-by-day basis, not just because you're coming here to collect a paycheck.
Mr. Hocevar, 30-second for follow-up.
Residency has little to do with qualifications. It makes you eligible to be the county attorney, but it doesn't make you qualified to be the county attorney. This is not the county attorney's office of 28 years ago. This is the county attorney's office of 2014, 2015. This is the county attorney's office that has 22 attorneys and 14 support staff. And to suggest that I don't have community ties because I slept in a different town, in a different county than Scott County, is really completely, again, misleading the citizens of Scott County. Is that what you truly want from the legal advisor to the county?
I disagree. I think residency is everything. I think knowing the people, and you know them by being here, living here, working with them on a day-to-day basis in their neighborhoods, knowing what the taxpayers desire, what their wants and values are, and bringing that forward. Otherwise, we'd have people, like I said, living all over the place. They could live in Minneapolis and represent Scott County. No, that's not going to happen. You're electing a representative of you, the taxpayer. You're representing the person that's in the neighborhood. You got to understand them more than just coming here for a job.
We've mentioned the county board several times. What level of priority do you place on attending county board meetings, and why? Mr. Tweedo, will begin with you.
Well, this county board, you can see it there, and they have the county attorney's name on there on the side, and I know Mr. Siliberto sits there along with assistant. Well, that started with me. It never really happened maybe prior to me being county attorney, and when I was county attorney, I did sit at every meeting that was here at the county board. I also had my chief deputy sit with me, and we were there to make sure we were available, not only for the board meetings, but we were there for committee meetings, we were there for citizen meetings. We worked with them and the departments and how they interacted. I also acted as a mediator. Sometimes what usually happens, you're going to have an issue that pops up all of a sudden, and what's going to happen is you're going to have a group of people out there that want the county board to do one thing. The county board just hears the issue. They don't know what they're going to do with it, and sometimes the county attorney acts as the mediator. So what he's going to do is he's going to say, you know, Mr. Chairman, maybe if I work with this group and try to look at all the issues, I can come back with an answer. And many times that's what I did. We'd come back the following week with an answer that satisfied both the county board and their mission, and also with the groups that were out there.
Mr. Hocevar, what level of priority do you place on attending county board meetings, and why?
I think it's a huge priority. And Mr. Siliberto, when he took over office, thought it was a huge responsibility also. And he made it a priority to be at all county board meetings, as will I when I am elected. I plan on being at the county board meetings and being their chief legal advisor. And I believe they have to be able to rely on me for that advice and believe what I am telling them. So I believe it's a great responsibility of the county attorney to be there. And I have absolutely no doubt they'll be able to work with the commissioners, work with the community as they come to the county board meetings, and facilitate anything that may happen at the county board, and give the county board the strong, legal, decisive advice they need. At the same time, reminding the county board and reminding the citizens that the county attorney's office, they sit over there because they're separate. They're not commissioners. The commissioners did not hire the county attorney's office. There's a reason for that. You have to be independent. This is legislative, that's executive. You have to have an independence to them. You can't just be the patsies for the commissioners and rubber stamp everything they do. You have to be able to tell them real legal advice, whether they like it or not.
We're going to step back now into some area that you have covered to some degree in your comments, but the current county attorney successfully did sue Scott County to achieve a pay increase. If elected, would you consider suing Scott County, the board? And if so, under what circumstances would you consider a lawsuit appropriate? Mr. Hocevar, we'll begin with you.
That's great. It just ties into my last answer about the county attorney being a separate entity from the commissioners. The commissioners do not hire the county attorney. They do not appoint the county attorney. And the reason for that is that there has to be a level of independence. This is local government, but it's just like state and federal government. The commissioners are legislative, the county attorney is executive. We cannot be patsies or rubber stamp everything the commissioners do. You have to be able to give them real legal advice. And if they don't follow it and they're not doing their job, it's an obligation of the chief legal counsel to make sure they do. And as I indicated, Mr. Torito wants to make a big deal out of Mr. Celeberto's lawsuits. Again, that wasn't me. It was Mr. Celeberto. I'm running, Mr. Celeberto isn't. And going back to what I was talking about before, he's trying to paint me with a broad brush and saying that I should have spoken out about that. I was an employee, eminent employee of the Scott County Attorney's Office. Where were you, Mr. Torito? You're talking about you're a lifelong Scott County resident. Where were you? Were you at the commission pounding on the table saying, what's this atrocity? Did you go to court? Did you file an amicus brief to stop that? You're speaking about it now because you're up for election. But where were you? You were in a better position than I was to stop it.
Well, Mr. Torito, let's give you an opportunity to talk. If you were elected, would you consider suing the Scott County or the board? And if so, under what circumstances would you consider a lawsuit appropriate?
I will not sue the taxpayers of Scott County. I will not sue the Board of Commissioners. I will not sue. I will make sure there's no greedy lawsuits brought against the taxpayers of this county. And the reason is, I didn't do it before, and I'm not going to do it again because I had a good working relationship with the County Board of Commissioners. There was no need to. I will continue to have a good working relationship with my county board to make sure that we meet all the needs that Scott County has when it comes to this. It's not going to happen. And I would hope that, my assistants, that if they saw that we were acting, in a greedy manner, would also speak out against it. I will speak out against all greedy lawsuits against the taxpayers.
We now have a pair of questions that kind of go together. First of all, what offenses are happening right now in Scott County that threaten public safety and would require the most resources from your office? Mr. Torito, will begin with you.
I think it goes back to what I said earlier before, is the drug use in Scott County. It is, I'm seeing it all, not only from what calls that I'm getting as far as defense work, but also what I'm hearing out there from city cops that I talk to also. And I think drugs are a problem. I think we're seeing a big influence of heroin. And I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg on that one. The reason is, I can remember when I was county attorney before, when crack and ice was really big. It happens on the coast first, it comes into the Midwest, and we'll start seeing a big problem. Same thing's going to happen with heroin. I have a brother who runs methadone clinics on the West Coast. And the biggest thing that he said is a huge influx of heroin that's happening, and that he said, you better start watching out because that's going to be the next new drug that's going to be even at higher levels than you've ever seen before. I think we have to work with our law enforcement, we have to look with our schools, with our community groups, our neighborhood watch groups, everything, in order to say, when you see something, say something.
Mr. Hocevar, what offenses are happening right now in Scott County that threaten public safety and would require the most resources from your office?
Well, they all threaten public safety. Every single crime that comes into our office is important, and that threatens public safety, and we deal with them as if they are the most important crime at the time. We don't assign a level to them and saying, oh, this rape is worse than this rape, let's do this one better, or this drug offense is worse than this drug offense, let's do this one better. Every crime threatens public safety. As they've already indicated, we have seen an increase in drugs. What has the Scott County Attorney's Office been doing about it? The meth task force. They're concentrating now, back when it was formed, methamphetamine was a huge issue. They have Klein Theater going to the schools, educating the young students, educating the teachers on the drugs. The meth task force has now moved into also education on heroin, and will continue to do that under my administration. As I've talked about earlier also, education is huge, and we're going to keep that education up. But drugs, as I indicated, is huge, and the offshoot of those drugs, from the rapes to the murders to the robberies, we all deal with them, and they're all a detriment to public safety.
Now, to follow up on that in some ways, what offenses are happening that impact the business community? Mr. Hosebar, we'll begin with you.
Again, they all impact the business community also. You have a murder, you have a rape, that makes the headlines, it's going to make businesses a little less likely to maybe want to come to Scott County, a little less likely to maybe want to stay in Scott County. So every offense affects every aspect of the population. For businesses in particular, obviously thefts, shoplifting, any type of theft would affect a business. Financial transaction card frauds can affect businesses. So those types of offenses affect the businesses also. Mr. Tweedo made a comment during one of his interviews, I believe it was last week or the week before, talking about taking $200 from a merchant, whether you use a gun or a check, is essentially the same thing. He couldn't be more wrong about that. You take a $200 cash from a retail merchant with a check, you're probably looking at maybe a misdemeanor at the most, maybe an order to pay restitution. You do it with a gun, you have a clerk that's afraid of being murdered, you're looking at a clerk who's probably going to quit and have nightmares, you're looking at a defendant who's going to have to spend at least 5 years in prison. So they're not even comparable.
Mr. Tweedo, what offenses are happening that impact the business community?
Mr. Hosebar has been taking that quote of mine out of context for a long time. 25 years ago, we had a severe problem with the business community regarding bad checks and checks coming through this county, and I started the bad check program back then, which is still in force now. It was told to me by a business person. They said he felt there was no difference between that they'd taken the $200 with it. They said they might as well just had a gun in front of me and taken it because they did it nicely with a bad check. It came from a businessman. The idea is theft is theft. Same thing with these drugs. You're going to see a lot more, and has been having burglaries, break-ins, not during the business day, at night when they're going into businesses and stealing. There's going to be stolen credit cards. We just had a situation in New Prague at a holiday station where somebody stole some debit and credit cards, and somehow it was working against the machine because of some numbers he had to use, and our police were on that right away. You're going to see some of those financial transactions happening at various businesses. I'm going to make sure that affects, everything from insurance fraud to burglary and theft due to these type of crimes, that we're going to take care of those things.
For our final question this evening, and you may want to respond to this quickly, would you hire your opponent as an employee in your office? Mr. Tweedo, we'll begin with you.
I've always told Ron, you're a good attorney, and it's, you're excellent to work in the office. He does have that experience. The big thing is that I don't think he's a leader. You hire attorneys, but you elect leaders. And what a leader is, a person that represents his community, that's part of his community day in and day out, that has a long residency, that knows his neighbors, that's belonged in these community groups, and that you can understand that you can come to that leader because he has vision, he has sight. He just doesn't say, well, I'm doing my job now and I do it okay, and even if I do it really well or great. The idea is that you have to have a leader that has vision, not just hiring a person. A lot of our businesses, there's tons of lawyers you can hire, but you elect one leader. And I'm going to be that leader that can do that for Scott County.
Mr. Hosebar, would you hire your opponent as an employee in your office?
Well, I like Jim Tweedo, but no, he's not a leader. I guess it's a shock to me and a shock to Mr. Celebero that I'm not a leader since I've been leading the office for the last 16 years. 12 of those as second in command. It's probably a shock to my employees also who have endorsed me that I'm not a leader. It's probably a shock to all the law enforcement officers out there, including all the retired sheriffs, including Kevin Stanika, that I'm not a leader. It's probably a shock to all those people in the community that have endorsed me that I'm not a leader. I'm a very strong, decisive leader. That's exactly why those individuals have endorsed me. Look at the letters to the editor. If I was not a strong leader, would they have endorsed me? Not a chance. They know me. They worked with me for the last 12 years, 16 years in the office as a leader. They know what I'm capable of. They know that I'm capable of leading this office. That's why they've endorsed me.
Well, our time is running out today. Anyone whose questions have not been answered should ask the candidates themselves this afternoon after the debate or contact their campaign office. You can also find out more about our candidates at the Chamber's website, shakopee.org. Each candidate is now going to have 1 minute for their closing statements, and we'll begin with Mr. Hocevar.
Again, I'd like to thank the Shakopee Visitors Bureau for hosting the forum. I'd like to thank everybody in the audience for coming. It's always nice to talk to live people, talk to citizens, so thank you very much. I believe I'm the best candidate for the County Attorney's Office for all the reasons we've already went through. I've been leading this office for the last 12 years as second in command, 16 of those years as in a supervisory capacity. I've prosecuted everything from trespass to murder in the first degree. I've been involved in every aspect of the office, trying trips cases, curfew violations, juvenile cases, child support cases. I've dealt with land use. I've dealt with everything that this office deals with, and I do it consistently. I have the support of law enforcement. Again, Sheriff Stanika, retired sheriffs Bill Nevin and Dave Menden, all the former Commissioner Dallas Bonsack, all the people that you can look at, my ads in the newspaper, all the letters to the editor. I have the support of the County Attorney's Office, and that should tell you something about what Scott County wants.
Thank you. Mr. Torito.
I want to thank the Visitors Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce. I am a member of the Chamber of Commerce in Jordan, where my law practice is. I'm a member of Rotary. I'm a member of the Fair Board. I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus. I am just like you. I am your neighbor. I am the person that you know that lives next door, that has the same ideas and values that you share. That's the same type of values you want to bring in your county attorney's office. Like I said, you can hire lawyers every day, but you elect leaders. And a leader is somebody that represents you. I have 30 years of not only legal experience, but of business experience. Something my opponent maybe does not have is all the business experience I have. I know how to make a payroll. I know how to balance budgets. I know how to make things work. And I think sometimes we have to bring some of that business sense back into the government because it's lacking quite a bit. I will bring efficiency. I will bring effectiveness. I've had the job. I know how it's done. I've seen this county grow. I've seen where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, and I can do that job. Thank you.
Well, thank you, candidates. And as we end today, let me remind you that the views expressed in today's debate are those of the candidate, not those of the Chamber and Visitors Bureau. The Chamber is sponsoring this event as a service to our community and has gone to great lengths to ensure the objectivity of this forum. The Chamber does not endorse any candidate, but seeks to provide you, the citizens and voters of Scott County, with the information you need to make an informed choice. On behalf of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau, I thank our candidates. We appreciate your time and the service that you have given to our community by running for office. You're performing an important service for us all. Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. Please remember to vote. Thank you, and good day.